Hi guys, and welcome to another 10-minute time video using JTS Napoleonics to have a look at Napoleonic warfare. And today we're going to be looking at infantry, what infantry can do, different types of infantry. It's not going to be comprehensive, and there are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of different types of units actually in the Age of Napoleon and warfare in the Age of Napoleon. However, we're going to have a look at the different types that are represented in game. First type then are our guard infantry. Now they'll be rated A+, anything up to A++, they're your top soldiers. And it goes all the way down to F, sort of militia units and things like that. The other thing we may have, and breaking it down into sort of the smallest formation if you like, are skirmishers. And sometimes skirmishers are their own formation in their own right, if you like, on a battlefield, and don't have a parent unit. We can break off skirmishers from most units if we don't actually have them already on the battlefield. Now we have light troops here, the designated light troops. We can break off skirmisher formations from light troops as many times as we want, as long as the parent unit retains at least 25 troops. We can also, through our regular troops if you like, break off a single skirmisher formation. And anywhere you see this designation can deploy means that this formation, this unit, can actually break off one single formation of skirmishers. A guard unit can do very similar things to a light unit, or exactly the same as a light unit, and they can break off as many skirmishers as they want. Another type of unit we have is a restricted unit. Now, a restricted unit cannot break off any skirmishers at all. They just stay in one big parent unit, and we can't actually break anything off. Another type of unit we have is a pioneer, or a sapper, or an engineer, call them whatever you like. They all do the same sort of thing. These are your engineers. These are the guys that we're going to use to repair bridges and things like that. We can also look at different formations. And in general, there is only 3 formations that we actually use in Napoleonic warfare. We've got what we call a line formation, so everybody stood in one big line, depending on the nation's army and their doctrine for the age of the time. They may be stood in 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 rows, all in the line. The advantage of this is that you get a lot of firepower to bear, because you've got a long line of muskets all facing the front, and chances are you're going to hit a lot more of the target if people are coming towards you. So line formation, it gives you a good attacking bonus, as we'll see in a second. We also have column formation, when everybody's lined up sort of 5, 6, 7 abreast in a big column. This gives you a massive mobility bonus. If you want to get across the battlefield, without doubt, the best way to go is by column. Again, try to use roads and pathways and things like that rather than obstructed hexes. It gives you a certain offensive bonus, maybe not so much for firepower, just because there aren't so many people or at the front, not so many muskets that you can bring to bear. However, it does give you a bit of a melee advantage. So if you're trying to fix bayonets, that column's going to pack an awful more of a punch than it would in line formation. Another formation is a square formation, when all infantry would line up into a square. In general, not every nation called it a square, but in general you had a 360-degree arc of fire because everybody was facing out. It was a defensive formation, not an offensive formation, and it was used to protect the soldiers against cavalry that were roaming around, so they could basically protect everybody that is within that square. So, I'm just going to show you a couple of things. We also have some further formations, and I'll show you with these Austrians here. We do have another type of line formation, and as you can see here, it says shortened. There's an awful lot of men in Austrian formations, and we can actually break them down into 2 lines. If we have our troops already in line formation and come up to this command hex here, and it says change extended line, what that's going to do is break that line into 2, and we can either break it down into 2 hexes, one to the left or to the right. Well, the Russians are blocking our way there, so we're going to have to do it to the left, and we can have a left echelon here. So left flank, and it breaks it down now into 2 separate line formations with the same unit. It used all our movement points in order to do that. However, it breaks down that massive chunky unit that we had, that massive number of people, about 900 men, into 2 separate units. I'll move these skirmishers forward and move these guys here. Go back to the French. I'm going to show you these pioneers and how they can repair and fix bridges then. Pioneers, I did say in another video they couldn't break off into skirmisher formation, but you need to protect them when you are when you're repairing bridges. I retract that and say that pioneers can actually break off into a skirmisher formation. So we've got 25 men there. We can move them to protect these guys when we're going to repair this bridge. Now they've got to be in an adjacent hex to a bridge, and they have to be facing the bridge. Now we've met all the criteria there. We're facing the bridge, we're in an adjacent hex. However, we can't actually do anything until the next turn, because essentially we need full movement points to actually commence repairing that bridge. So we're going to leave these guys there for a second. Another thing is this is a trench hex, and in a trench hex, if we move our Saxon guards in here, we're going to suffer a disorder penalty. That's just because you're trying to get 600 men all sorted out within a 10-minute time frame. It's going to cause a little bit of chaos. So we'll go into that trench, we'll get instant disorder. However, if we've got a leader nearby, it's going to speed up that morale check or that disorder check, if for want of a better word. So they might sort themselves next turn. Now in a trench, you're well protected, so you get a real good defensive bonus. However, just because of the nature of how trenches were dug and things like that, you couldn't get into line formation. You actually suffer a firing penalty of minus 50%. So you get a lot better protection, but you get less attack. This is an abatis, and it's basically a defensive feature that when any infantry moves into it, so I'm going to move these Russians up in a second up here, they're going to suffer instant disorderment, and if you get disordered, as we know, you're going to suffer penalties by way of movement and attacking and defense. So you've got to be careful moving in line as well. Although we can move it in line, generally troops of the era did not move certainly large distances by line unless they were very well trained. Now these grenadiers, these foot grenadiers, they're A and 2 stars, so they're very well trained. They're going to have good morale, they're going to suffer less fatigue and things like that, so the chance of them actually disordering will be less than it would for, say, a militia unit. So I'm going to move these guys forward. You can move square. Square also is subject, especially when moving to a disorder penalty, as we got there. Now, I'm going to break off some of these guys into skirmisher units. So, because they're light, we can break off from the parent unit as many skirmisher units as we actually like. If I wanted to bring those skirmishers back in and call that skirmish line back into the parent unit, if I select that unit and press skirmisher, again it goes back into the parent unit. So we can do that up there, press it again, they go back into that parent unit. Skirmishers were used very much as a vanguard to protect flanks, as a rear guard, not so much for scouts and things like that. So for example, we move these guys out here to protect our flank, and they were light infantry. They were very nimble, they were very fast, they tended to be the best marksmen, they were often armed with rifles, and they would use cover to their advantage, dash around in between cover and take opportunity fire against high value targets such as officers and the like. They wouldn't get involved with the main fight, if you like. We'd sort of pull those back into the parent unit or even behind so they can recover their fatigue and stuff like that. And you can use them to guard targets such as bridges or victory points and stuff like that as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you now these Russians coming up here. They'll go into this abatis now and they're going to suffer instant disorderment. That's just because they'd have to climb up and over obstacles, so they're going to get a penalty and they should get penalised as such. So the line formation, as we said, is probably the most devastating and best attacking formation that you can actually have, just because of the amount of firepower they are able to bring to bear. Square, we said that was good for defense against cavalry. It's not an offensive formation at all, although you can fire from square. The column is good for meleeing, and it's a good sort of all-round general formation, if you like. What we can do is come to these pioneers now. These pioneers, because we've met the criteria that they're facing the bridge, that they're in an adjacent hex, and they also have their full movement points, we can come to command. We can say toggle bridge repairing. Now it says they're repairing, and now they can start to fix that bridge. And over the course of the next few turns, we'll start to see this bridge damage value actually increase. The more pioneers we have, or the better quality pioneers we have, the higher chance that bridge will get repaired faster, goes without saying. Just want to show you this volley fire, or the difference between the volley fire. We're going to bring these Prussians up here, and then we're going to have a look at this volley fire. I'm going to say it's going to be quite devastating. Not too bad, 42 men. These guys have sorted themselves out, so they've gone through that disorderment check, probably because there's a leader, or some of the Emperor's staff there, that sorted them out and expedited that. I'll explain the leadership element in another video. That's about all I can say for infantry. Very, very basic. As I said, there's lots of different types. I would strongly suggest that you read the documentation that comes with each game, because that will break it down. You can see how each one got their rating. So up here, as we said, the guard, and then we've got some C quality troops and stuff like that. Don't forget, these guys can deploy, so we can still get a skirmisher formation from this unit. However, once they've deployed that one skirmisher unit, we lose that ability to deploy anymore. We can only do that with light troops, and we can only do that with guard troops. And militia as well, that aren't covered, as I said. They have some little caveats. They cannot deploy any skirmishers, so they're restricted. And they can't also deploy into square. They didn't have the training or the discipline to actually be able to carry out those sorts of maneuvers. So hopefully this has been helpful. Make sure you check out the videos on command and artillery and movement as well. Thanks for watching.